Okay, so The Bad Batch has just finished up its first season, and as the Emperor, it is my job to sit on my comfy throne and talk about it. So The Bad Batch was originally introduced to us in the Clone Wars Season 7, known as Clone Force 99, a group of clones with special mutations that other clones don't have. So, for example, the leader Hunter has enhanced senses, Crosshair has enhanced vision, which makes him more of an expert marksman, Wrecker has enhanced strength, and Tech is the smart one. Also, Echo's a part of the group now since apparently getting blown up doesn't mean much anymore. And then there's Omega, and we'll get to her later on. For now, I will say that when The Bad Batch first got announced as the successor to the ever so beloved CG Clone Wars series, I was skeptical as hell. Because while I did like them in the few episodes that we had of them in the Clone Wars, I couldn't help but think to myself, okay, these guys are alright, but do we really want a whole show centered around these guys? Maybe a couple of comic books, sure, but as far as I could personally tell, I didn't see anybody championing for these guys to have their own TV series. So I just saw that announcement and just went like, okay, I guess that's fine. Better than the sequels anyway. But then I saw the first episode, and it's over an hour long, and I'm thinking to myself, damn, we getting hour-long episodes? And then I saw the episode, and the episode itself was really, really fucking good. And I thought to myself, damn, we getting content like this? And I thought to myself, okay, this is a good ass show. I wonder where it goes from here. And while I wouldn't necessarily say that it was all downhill from there, I can say that there was a decline in quality from episode 1 to episode everything else. But before we get into that, let me talk about why I liked episode 1 so much. So first off, it was an hour and 14 minutes long. So it was almost like you were watching a little movie of The Bad Batch. And then we get thrown right into The Bad Batch helping out a young Caleb Dune and his master his Jedi Master, goddammit. And it is right at the end of the Clone Wars, and we know exactly what happened at the end of the Clone Wars.
Execute Order 66.
Alright, I guess this is the night bitches die.
And of course we got to see Caleb and his master deal with that. The master of course dies, Caleb runs away, and the Bad Batch are just like, what the fuck was that about? Because apparently, because of their mutations, they're not as affected by Order 66 as the other clones are. The only one that seems affected by it is Crosshair, and so you can already get a gauge as to what's gonna happen with him. We also get to see this transitional period of the Republic becoming the Empire. One of the first major changes by the Empire is that clones are now obsolete, and the Empire is gonna be using actual people. And I thought, okay, that's kind of cool to see. So Tarkin's over here arguing with the Prime Minister of Kamino about the need for more clones now that the war is over. So Tarkin puts the Bad Batch to the test when he puts them up against these, what looks to be, second phase Dark Troopers. And they do prove their merit, so he gives them another test where he wants them to wipe out these quote-unquote separatist insurgents. So they obviously follow the orders, but when they get there to do the mission, you see that these aren't insurgents. These are just people who don't want to put up with the Empire's bullshit. And we see Saw Gerrera again, and real quickly off topic, why does Lucasfilm have such a boner for Saw Gerrera? Like, why do they keep trying to push this dude? I'm legitimately just asking, by the way. Anybody got an answer? You know, there's the comment section. So the Bad Batch abandon the mission, but they go back to Kamino for Omega, a little female clone who has super insight on things, and because she's just like them and has a special mutation, they go back for her. But surprise, surprise, the Bad Batch end up getting arrested, and Crosshair, because he had shown loyalty to the Empire, was taken so that he could have his inhibitor chip enhanced, making him even more loyal. And I will come back to that. But anyway, the rest of the Bad Batch, along with Omega, tried to escape, and they would have liked to have done it with Crosshair, but to their surprise, Crosshair turns on them and they're forced to leave without him. So now they're out in the galaxy trying to figure out how they're going to survive with this newly appointed Empire. And that's basically the episode in a nutshell. And again, the episode was a really strong start for the series. The pacing was good, I was constantly on the edge of my seat, wondering what was going to happen next. But unfortunately, they did not keep up this same momentum throughout the rest of the series. Now, the rest of the episodes are not an hour long, but that's okay because it's about quality, not longevity. The rest of the episodes are around 20-something minutes long. But anyway, at one point in the series, the Bad Batch meets this person named Sid, and she's basically giving them odd jobs to do for a huge chunk of the series. And we're just kind of dicking around with Sid until something interesting happens or we run into the next guest character. And there are a lot of guest characters in this show, almost one in each episode. And I wouldn't mind this if it felt like we were actually going somewhere, but for the most part, the Bad Batch is basically just doing odd jobs for Sid because they owe her a debt and they're trying to pay that off. But even when it's paid off, they still stick with Sid. And I guess they do that because they need money, but still, it would be interesting if the Bad Batch had some sort of goal that they were looking to strive towards or something. Even if it was just, hey, we're gonna get Crosshair back one day, and they were trying to devise a plan on how to do that, that would have been better than just filler, 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 oh, and here's some more filler. And don't get me wrong, it's not Naruto level bad when it comes to all the filler stuff, but still, not a lot is really happening progression-wise. And what I mean is, usually episodes are kind of structured like this. The Bad Batch are ordered by Sid to go do something. They'll go off and do it, shenanigans occur, the illusion of danger is there, but they're ultimately successful, and that's basically the episode. And for the most part, things happen like that from episode to episode, and because of that, we don't really feel like the story is actually going anywhere. Like, most of their missions don't have any real significant impact, outside of letting us, the audience, know how the Empire is starting to take over. And that just usually serves as an obstacle for the Bad Batch whenever they try to complete these missions. The most interesting things in the Bad Batch is seeing the transition from the Republic to the Empire, and yeah, that's actually it. Anything with how we're going through this transitional period is great, it has me invested. But when they're doing things like dicking around with Rancors or trying to get off a moon or whatever, that's when I just kinda tune out. The inhibitor chip slowly but surely affecting them was an interesting concept, but then that doesn't really go anywhere. I mean, it does affect Crosshair for a while there, and it affected Wrecker for like one episode, but then after that they get him removed and that's the end of the chip. And before somebody says, well, Crosshair still has his chip, no he doesn't. He said in his own words, he removed his chip a long time ago. And I'll get back to that later on, but for now I'm wondering why even introduce the obstacle of the inhibitor chip affecting them if at the end of the day it doesn't mean anything. It just seems so pointless. Characters are still in places they would have been in with the chip, so why even bother with the chip? I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I just don't understand the point of that. Also, some of the character interactions don't make a lot of sense. Like, for example, with the character of Omega. Like, guys, I don't know about y'all, but Omega got on my fucking nerves. Like, whenever Hunter, the leader of the Bad Batch, makes a really good call, like trying to leave Omega with Cut or leaving her behind because the mission is too dangerous, she'll just pout and Hunter will change his mind. Or like if Hunter is looking out for his people, the Bad Batch, saying that a mission is too risky or whatever, Omega will just use Talk No Jutsu and Hunter will change his mind. Now guys, I don't know about y'all, but back when I was a kid, if I wanted something so much as a candy bar and my mom said no, she would put her foot flat down on the floor. Nothing I could say or do would change her mind. And my mom's not a bad person, it's just that when the foot is down, the foot is down. And with Hunter being the leader, he should have the final say as to how something gets tackled. Like, Omega's opinion shouldn't even be considered when it is very much a life or death situation. And granted, yes, they are successful in these missions, but still, it's down to Hunter to make the call as to what they're gonna risk their lives for. And at the end, at the two-part finale, oh my god, I just want to strangle this kid, because a situation happens where they go back to Kamino, and Crosshair has Hunter at gunpoint, and the rest of the Bad Batch show up, being Tech, Echo, and Wrecker, but Omega stays behind because if something goes bad, then she needs to get the hell out of Dodge. And something does go bad, the Bad Batch does get surrounded by Crosshair and some stormtroopers, and so Omega, trying to help, unleashes those dark trooper things on them, because apparently the answer to enemies is more enemies. Like, even if Crosshair hadn't shot the stormtroopers, that would still be a hell of a struggle putting up with all those dark troopers in there. And then at the end, when they're escaping from underwater in those little lab capsules, they all make it thanks to the help of this little droid that you probably remember back in the Clone Wars, the one that was with Fives before he died. Now get this, everybody's getting ready to make it. Omega is the last one that needs to be pushed to the surface. The droid is helping push her to the surface, but it was slowly but surely running out of power, and it's using the last of its power to push Omega upwards and make sure that she can make it. And it succeeds, but it had used up the last bit of its energy, so it starts falling down to the depths. And so what does Omega do? She leaves her capsule and's like, oh, I'm gonna go save the droid. But bitch, it's a fucking droid. You can always get a new one. And to give y'all some perspective as to how stupid that is, she goes out of her capsule to save the droid, right? Who has no real thoughts and no real feelings. Like, it's not sentient, it is a programmed device. But she has to get out of her capsule and risk drowning in order to save that droid. And then Hunter is about to risk drowning himself in order to save Omega. And if it wasn't for Crosshair's stubborn ass saving Omega with his little grappling hook gun, she and or Hunter would have been motherfucking dead. So in conclusion to this miniature Omega rant, fuck you Omega, and your no sense having ass. Another character that really fucking annoyed me was Crosshair, but he didn't always annoy me though. Let me explain. So at the beginning, I would definitely say that Crosshair is probably the most interesting character in the show, with him being under the influence of the inhibitor chip and doing all these bad things, and the Bad Batch not really being able to help him without killing him, and so they just kind of avoid him throughout most of the series, when they can. Come the penultimate episode, episode 15, Return to Kamino, he's having kind of this back and forth with Hunter, and Hunter's trying to explain that, hey, we didn't want to leave you behind, you didn't give us a choice, and Crosshair's like, and I had a choice? And they continue to go back and forth like this, and Crosshair is like, okay Hunter, I'm gonna give you the one thing you didn't give me, a fucking chance. And I was starting to feel a little bit bad for Crosshair here, because essentially it seemed like he just felt abandoned by what you could call his family. But then we get the revelation that
I had my chip removed a long time ago.
You what?
and any little bit of sympathy I had for him was gone. Now, as far as when he removed the chip, I don't think he removed it manually, but what I do feel like is that when Crosshair got burnt by that engine a few episodes back, that also burnt the chip and all of its programming, and that's the reason why he still has that injured spot on the side of his head. But that being said, if we are to believe that the chip is no longer in play, then why in the blue blazing hell is he fighting for an empire that has shown that they do not give a damn about clones and literally tried to kill him? Why would he not want to go back to Hunter and company? Like, guys, you probably already know this about me, considering the videos that I make, but it's hard for me to feel sympathy for somebody when they're the one that's the problem. Like, you have an easy solution to a problem, then why would you make that problem purposefully more difficult than it needs to be? Like, I just don't get it. Now, one could argue that maybe the chip is still active even though it's burnt, and so he probably thinks that the chip is removed, but in reality it's still in there, and it's still working, because we see him still putting his hand to his head as though the chip is still influencing him in some manner, and that could be the case. But as it stands right now, he just looks like an outright imbecile. Maybe they'll explain more in season 2, who knows. Also, the two-part finale feels rather underwhelming. Like, the first part of the finale is fine, Return to Kamino, but then the second part, Kamino Lost, just feels like once again we're dicking around for the sake of giving us Star Wars content. I mean, I understand the reason why, they're trapped underwater and they have to escape, but the first part of the finale felt more like a season finale, and the second half felt more like the beginning of season 2. Also, if you're like me, you were probably thinking that there was going to be some type of Kamino uprising, kind of similar to how things were in Battlefront 2, the original Battlefront 2, not the newer one. And we may still get something like that in some capacity, just not on Kamino. Now, I don't mean to sound like I'm just taking a shit on the Bad Batch, because there are things to like about the show. Like I said, us seeing the different transitions of the Republic becoming the Empire. It is nice to see some characters back from the canonical grave. That first episode really kicked ass, and it still has the same Star Wars feel and charm to it, but it is rather underwhelming. Again, like I said, it doesn't feel like we're going anywhere with this series, like it's just there for the sake of being there. With the Clone Wars at least, you were telling these anthology stories that were taking place within the Clone War. Now, we all know how the Clone Wars end, we all know how Star Wars ends, but the 2008 Clone Wars series was a nice little side story that took place during the time of the Clone Wars, and it felt like it was something of relevance, giving us more insight to a character or a certain plot line, or learning more about the Star Wars universe itself. Or like with Star Wars Rebels, how they started out as a small group doing good wherever they could, and then opting to do a lot more as the show went on. We knew what both the Clone Wars and Rebels were trying to do when it came to their stories. We do not understand what the Bad Batch is trying to do, aside give us more Star Wars content. Like I said, we are learning more about the transitional side of things, but that seems like more of a new obstacle than a focal point. I think the worst part about the Bad Batch is that while it's not necessarily a bad show, it feels like it has potential that is just getting wasted. Like, we definitely should have gotten more on the Empire becoming the Empire and how the Bad Batch are dealing with that. Maybe take some time to make the Bad Batch characters more interesting characters outside of their mutations, like actually getting to know them and stuff. Give them a set goal to strive for, even if all that is survival. And I feel like the show tries to do that, but it more or less just comes across as the Bad Batch getting pulled from one situation to another situation. I don't know, guys. I mean, I did try to give the show the old college try, but at the end of the day, I understand that this show may just not be for me personally. So if you like the show, congratulations. But for me personally, I would say that this show is a 5 out of 10. Maybe they'll have like a really good season 2 and make up for season 1, but as it stands right now, I just don't don't care about the Bad Batch show, but let me know what you guys think. Did you like the Bad Batch? Did you not like the Bad Batch? Are you looking forward to season 2 or not? As always, support your Emperor by hitting the like and clicking subscribe. Also support me on these social media platforms. You wouldn't want to commit treason now, would you?